Hey everyone, tonight we're sailing back to one of history's most pivotal moments, the dawn of the Viking Age, in 793 AD. I know Vikings might not sound like typical bedtime material, but the real story of these Norse seafarers is far more complex and fascinating than Hollywood raids and battles. We're exploring the daily life, the seamanship, and the human experience of people who changed the course of European history. If you're enjoying these deep dives into forgotten history, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. I'm always curious where you're all listening from around the world, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It never ceases to amaze me how people fall asleep to these ancient stories from every corner of the globe. All right, find that perfect, comfortable position, take a nice slow breath, and let your body sink completely into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to the fjords of Norway in 793 AD to experience the life of a Viking warrior on the eve of the most famous raid in Norse history. Trust me, you'll never think about Vikings the same way again. The dawn of the sea wolf. Congratulations. You've just awakened in a longhouse on the western coast of Norway in the year 793 AD. It's early morning, perhaps 2 hours before dawn, and you're lying on a wooden sleeping platform covered with thick furs and woolen blankets. The air is crisp and salty, carrying the scents of the nearby fjord mixed with wood smoke from the central hearth that has burned low during the night. Your name is Ragnar Eriksson, and you are a Viking, though that word won't be commonly used for another century. To yourself and your people, you are simply a Norseman, a free farmer and warrior who owns land, commands a ship, and leads men across the whale road in search of wealth and honor. You're not a savage or a mindless berserker, but a skilled sailor, a shrewd trader, and when necessary, a formidable warrior. The longhouse around you represents the heart of Norse civilization. This rectangular wooden building, nearly 100 feet long, houses not just your immediate family, but your household workers, visiting relatives, and honored guests. The walls are made of thick oak planks, chinked with moss and sealed with pine tar to keep out the bitter northern winds. Carved dragon heads and intricate knotwork decorations show the wealth and status your successful raids have brought to your family. Your breathing is still slow from sleep. Take a moment now to breathe more deeply, feeling the cool morning air fill your lungs. In through your nose, slowly and completely, then out through your mouth with a gentle sigh. The air carries the familiar scents of your world: wood smoke, seal oil, the wool and furs that keep your family warm through the long northern winters. You sit up slowly on the sleeping platform, feeling the thick, bare fur beneath you. Your body is strong and lean, shaped by years of rowing, sailing, and the constant physical demands of life in 8th century Scandinavia. Your hands are calloused from rope work and weapon handle, your shoulders broad from pulling oars through rough seas, your legs powerful from maintaining balance on a pitching ship deck. The longhouse is quiet except for the gentle breathing of sleeping family members and the soft crackle of dying embers in the central fire pit. Your wife Astrid sleeps peacefully beside you, her blonde hair spread across the furs. Your 2 young sons occupy a smaller sleeping platform nearby, while your elderly father, Eric the Greybeard, rests in the place of honor closest to the high seat. Through the smoke hole in the roof, you can see the first faint lightening of the sky that announces the approaching dawn. Today is special. You can feel it in your bones, in the way the wind carries whispers from the sea. Today, if the omens are favorable, you and 30 of your finest warriors will launch your longship and sail west across the North Sea toward the monasteries of Northumbria. Standing now, you move quietly through the longhouse toward the entrance, stepping carefully around sleeping bodies and the scattered belongings of a large household. The wooden floor, made of split logs fitted tightly together, feels solid beneath your bare feet. Your movements are controlled and silent, the skills of a warrior who has learned to move without alerting enemies. This is your world, Ragnar, the world of the Norse sea kings, where courage and cunning determine a man's fate, where the boundary between farmer and warrior shifts with the seasons, where the promise of distant shores calls to those bold enough to risk everything for wealth and glory. Morning preparations in the Hall of Warriors. The entrance to the longhouse is protected by a heavy wooden door, reinforced with iron bands and secured with a massive wooden bar. You lift the bar carefully, setting it aside without waking the household, and step out into the pre-dawn darkness of your farmstead. The air outside is sharp and clear, carrying the salt tang of the nearby fjord and the green scents of the brief northern summer. Your breath forms small clouds in the cool air as you look out over the landscape that has shaped your people for countless generations. Rolling hills covered in pine and birch stretch inland, while to the west, the dark waters of the fjord reflect the last stars before dawn. Your farmstead consists of several buildings clustered around the main longhouse. There's the smithy, where weapons and tools are forged. The weaving house, where the women create the sails and clothing that make sea voyages possible. Storehouses filled with the grain and preserved meat that sustain your household through winter. And down by the water's edge, the boat sheds that house your most precious possessions, your ships. You breathe deeply, letting the morning air fill your lungs completely. In through your nose, tasting the salt and pine on the wind, then out through your mouth in a controlled exhale. Your body naturally adjusts to the cooler temperature, muscles loosening as you begin your morning routine. The path to the shore is worn smooth by generations of feet, winding through stands of rowan and ash trees that provide both shelter and the raw materials for shipbuilding. Every Norse farmer knows trees as intimately as a weaponsmith knows steel, which woods bend without breaking, which resist rot, which provide the flexibility needed for a ship that must ride the waves rather than fight them. At the water's edge stands your pride and joy, a sleek longship 30 meters from stem to stern, her oak hull stained black with pine tar, her high prow carved into the fearsome head of a dragon. She is called Raven's Wing, and she has carried you safely across the Whale Road on 7 previous expeditions, bringing back silver, slaves, and the reputation that makes other jarls speak your name with respect. The ship rests in a wooden cradle on the beach, her hull protected from the rocks and sand that could damage the carefully fitted planks. Even in the dim pre-dawn light, you can see her graceful lines. The shallow draft that allows her to navigate rivers as well as open ocean. The flexible construction that lets her bend with the waves instead of breaking. The perfect balance between strength and speed that makes Norse ships the finest vessels in the known world. Running your hand along her smooth hull, you feel the slight give in the planks that indicates proper construction. A rigid ship breaks in rough seas, but Raven's Wing flexes like a living thing, riding over waves that would swamp heavier vessels. Her overlapping planks are held together with iron rivets and sealed with pine tar mixed with sheep's wool, creating a hull that's both watertight and resilient. Your breathing settles into the steady rhythm of anticipation as you inspect your ship in the growing light. Each timber tells a story. The oak keel that provides her backbone came from a tree that grew for 2 centuries before being carefully selected and shaped. The pine planks of her sides were split from logs chosen for their straight grain and freedom from knots. Every piece of wood was seasoned, shaped, and fitted by craftsmen whose skills have been passed down through generations. The interior of the ship shows the careful planning that makes long sea voyages possible. Rowing benches for 30 men line the hull, each positioned to give maximum leverage for the long oars that will drive her through calm waters. The mast step, carved from a single massive piece of oak, waits to receive the 30-foot pine mast that will carry the great square sail across open ocean. Storage areas beneath the rowing benches hold the supplies needed for extended voyages. Barrels of fresh water, sacks of dried fish and grain, spare weapons and tools. The precious trading goods that make raids profitable when fighting isn't necessary. Everything has its place, secured against the violent motion of storms that can scatter loose gear like leaves in a gale. As you complete your inspection of the ship, the eastern sky begins to lighten with the approach of dawn. Soon, your warriors will begin arriving for the final preparations before departure. Weapons must be sharpened, supplies loaded, and most importantly, the signs and omens read to determine whether the gods favor this expedition. Your hands rest on the dragon head that crowns Raven's Wing's prow, feeling the smooth curves carved by a master craftsman. This figurehead isn't mere decoration, but spiritual protection. A fierce guardian that will frighten away the sea monsters and hostile spirits that inhabit the deep waters between the known world and the distant shores you seek. Standing beside your ship in the growing light, breathing the salt air that calls to every Norse heart, you feel the anticipation building for another voyage into the unknown. Your breathing deepens naturally, in and out, steady and controlled, preparing your mind and body for the challenges ahead. The gathering of the warband. As the sun climbs higher above the fjord, painting the water with silver light, you hear the sound of approaching footsteps on the forest paths. Your warband is gathering. 30 carefully chosen men who have sworn oaths of loyalty and proven their courage in battle. Some are your own household warriors, younger men seeking to make their fortunes under your leadership. Others are neighboring farmers, experienced fighters who join your expeditions when their own fields need no tending. The first to arrive is Olaf the Stout, your oldest friend and most trusted lieutenant. You've sailed together for 15 years, sharing dangers and dividing plunder with the bond that only warriors who have saved each other's lives can understand. He carries his weapons in a leather bag, his mail shirt rolled in oiled cloth to prevent rust from the sea spray that will soon drench everything aboard the ship. The wind is fair from the east, he reports, testing the breeze with a wetted finger. Strong enough to fill the sail, steady enough to hold course. The weather watchers say it should hold for 3 days, enough to reach the English coast with favorable conditions. You nod, appreciating both the information and the seamanship that allows Olaf to read wind and weather like runes carved in stone. Norse navigation depends not on charts or instruments, but on the accumulated knowledge of experienced sailors who understand how wind patterns, wave formations, and the behavior of seabirds reveal the location of distant land. More warriors arrive in small groups, each man carrying his personal weapons and the few possessions he'll need for the voyage. Their equipment reveals the practical nature of Viking warfare. No elaborate armor or ceremonial weapons, but well-made tools designed for effectiveness rather than display. Iron spear points, sharp axes that serve as both weapons and tools, round shields of limewood covered with leather and reinforced with iron bosses. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with the growing activity around the ship as you supervise the loading process. In and out, steady and controlled, your body preparing for the physical demands of the voyage ahead. The familiar routine of pre-departure preparations has its own calming rhythm, each task performed with the precision that experience teaches. Astrid appears from the longhouse carrying your own war gear in a beautifully decorated wooden chest. Your wife is not just a keeper of the household, but a partner in the enterprise of Viking leadership. While you're away raiding, she'll manage the farm, settle disputes among the workers, and prepare for your return with whatever wealth you bring back from across the sea. From the chest, you remove your byrnie, a shirt of mail made from thousands of interlocking iron rings. The armor is both protection and symbol of status, requiring the work of skilled smiths and representing a significant investment of wealth. You pull it on over your wool tunic, feeling its familiar weight settle across your shoulders like a second skin. Your sword comes next, the most precious of your possessions. The blade was forged by a master smith, its steel folded and hammered until it achieved the flexibility and sharpness that make Norse swords legendary throughout Europe. The hilt is wrapped with leather and wire for secure grip, while the pommel bears silver inlay in the interwoven patterns that mark it as the weapon of a wealthy warrior. The sword hangs from a belt of finest leather, positioned for quick draw with your right hand, while leaving the left free to handle your shield. The scabbard is lined with sheepskin to protect the blade from moisture, and decorated with bronze fittings that catch the morning sunlight. Your shield is a work of art as well as protection. Lime wood covered with leather and painted with your personal design, a black raven on a red field. The iron boss at its center can turn sword blades, while the carefully balanced weight distribution allows for both protection and offensive strikes. Leather straps on the back provide secure grip while allowing the shield to be slung across your back when not needed for immediate defense. Completing your equipment is a selection of spear points, each designed for specific purposes. Throwing spears with light heads for ranged combat, thrusting spears with heavy points for close fighting, and your personal favorite, a broad-bladed spear that can cut as well as thrust, serving as both weapon and symbol of command. As you arm yourself, your warband follows suit, 30 experienced fighters transforming from farmers and craftsmen into the sea wolves that have become the terror of coastal Europe. The process is efficient and businesslike. These men know their equipment and their roles, honed by years of successful expeditions. Your breathing deepens as the familiar weight of armor and weapons settles into place. Each piece of gear has been tested in battle, modified for personal preference, maintained with the care that survival demands. This equipment represents not just protection, but confidence. The tools of professionals who understand their deadly trade. Loading the dragon ship. With the warband assembled and armed, the process of loading Raven's Wing begins in earnest. Every item must be carefully placed to maintain the ship's balance and ensure essential supplies remain accessible during the voyage. After years of experience, you and your men work with practiced efficiency, each man knowing his responsibilities without need for detailed instruction. Fresh water comes first, stored in sealed wooden barrels, and placed low in the hull where their weight will contribute to stability rather than making the ship top-heavy. Norse voyages depend on careful water management. Unlike coastal sailing, where fresh water can be found regularly, crossing the North Sea requires carrying enough water for several days with no opportunity for resupply. Food supplies follow a similar logic of careful calculation. Dried fish, hard cheese, and ship's bread go into waterproof containers distributed throughout the vessel. These foods will keep for weeks without spoiling, providing the sustained nutrition needed for long voyages and extended raids. Fresh food will come from fishing and whatever can be acquired at your destination. Your breathing settles into the rhythm of physical work as you supervise the loading process. In through your nose, feeling your muscles prepare for effort, out through your mouth as you coordinate with your men. The morning air carries the scents of the ship, pine tar, rope, and the iron smell of weapons and armor. Weapons receive special attention during loading. Beyond personal arms, the ship carries additional spear points, arrows for the bows that several of your men specialize in using, and spare swords for replacing weapons lost or broken in combat. These backup weapons aren't as fine as personal equipment, but they're serviceable tools that can mean the difference between victory and defeat. Trading goods occupy a significant portion of the ship's space, reflecting the dual nature of Viking expeditions. amber from the Baltic shores, walrus ivory from the northern seas, and fine furs trapped during the winter months. These valuable items can be traded peacefully if the opportunity arises, providing profit without the risks of combat. The ship's sail, woven from the finest wool and waterproofed with pine tar, requires careful handling. This massive piece of cloth, 30 feet square when fully deployed, represents months of work by skilled women and the difference between swift progress and exhausting rowing across hundreds of miles of open ocean. It's folded and stored, where it can be quickly deployed when needed. Olaf oversees the placement of oars, ensuring each rowing position has both a primary oar and a spare. These aren't simple poles, but carefully shaped tools, each one balanced for efficient pulling and sized for the specific rowing position it serves. The rhythm of 30 oars working in unison will drive Raven's wing through calm seas and adverse winds. Navigation tools, such as they are, consist mainly of the accumulated knowledge carried in the minds of experienced sailors. A simple sun compass helps maintain course during clear weather, while the flight patterns of seabirds, the color and behavior of waves, and even the taste of seawater provide clues about location and distance from land. Your personal sea chest contains the items that mark you as the expedition's leader: silver arm rings for rewarding brave followers, extra weapon points for gifts to potential allies, and the carved gaming pieces that help pass time during long voyages. Leadership among Vikings is personal and immediate, maintained through generosity as much as courage. As the loading nears completion, your breathing naturally deepens with anticipation. Each secured barrel and properly stowed weapon brings the moment of departure closer. The ship sits lower in the water now, heavy with supplies and the hopes of 30 men seeking their fortunes across the Whale Road. The sun climbs higher above the fjord, its light sparkling on the water and warming the morning air. Favorable wind continues to blow from the east, perfect for carrying a Norse longship west toward the rich monasteries of Northumbria, where monks hoard silver and gold with little thought for proper defense. The blessing of the gods. Before any serious voyage, proper attention must be paid to the gods and spirits who control the fates of ships and men. Norse religion is practical and immediate. The gods are powerful but not all-knowing, capable of being influenced by appropriate offerings and respectful behavior. Your success or failure on this expedition may well depend on divine favor, making these rituals as important as sharp weapons and favorable winds. At the bow of Raven's Wing, you prepare the offering that will seek the gods' blessing for your voyage. A young goat, purchased specifically for this purpose, waits calmly in a wooden pen near the ship. The animal is perfect for sacrifice, unblemished, healthy, and valuable enough to demonstrate serious intent to the divine powers. Your warband gathers in a circle around the makeshift altar you've prepared on the beach. These men come from different farms and different families, but they're united by shared beliefs and common purpose. Each warrior touches his personal Thor's hammer pendant or other protective charm, seeking individual protection while participating in the group ritual. The morning air carries the scent of burning pine as you light the ritual fire using flint and steel. The flames catch quickly in the dry wood, sending smoke rising straight up in the still air, a favorable sign that suggests the gods are paying attention to your ceremony. You breathe deeply, feeling the wood smoke fill your lungs as you prepare for the sacred words. Odin Allfather, gift us wisdom for the path ahead, you intone, your voice carrying clearly across the water. Thor Thunder Wielder, grant strength to our arms and fair winds to our sail. Njord Sea Friend, calm the waves and guide our ships safely across the Whale Road. Each invocation receives a response from your warriors. So may it be. Their voices echoing off the water and the surrounding hills. This isn't mere superstition but practical spirituality, seeking the favor of gods who control the forces that determine success or failure in dangerous enterprises. The sacrifice follows ancient patterns, performed with the skill of a man who has led many such ceremonies. The goat's blood flows onto the ship's dragonhead, consecrating the vessel for the voyage ahead, while portions of meat are distributed among the warriors to share the blessing. The gods appreciate offerings, but they also expect humans to take practical action to achieve their goals. Astrid steps forward to perform her own blessing, sprinkling the ship with water drawn from a sacred spring in the mountains above your farmstead. Women's magic is different from men's, but equally important, focused on protection and safe return rather than victory in battle. Her words are softer, but no less powerful, seeking the favor of goddesses who watch over sailors' wives and children. Your breathing deepens as the ritual reaches its climax, each inhalation bringing the scent of sacrifice and wood smoke. The ceremony connects you and your men to powers greater than yourselves, while also strengthening the bonds that unite your warband. Shared risks require shared beliefs, and facing death together begins with praying together. The omens appear favorable as the ceremony concludes. The fire burns clearly without wavering, suggesting divine approval. A raven, Odin's messenger, circles overhead before flying west, the same direction your ship will take. Most encouraging of all, the wind holds steady from the east, perfect for swift passage across the North Sea. Your warriors disperse to make final preparations, each man checking his personal gear one last time before the voyage begins. Weapons are tested for loose bindings, armor straps adjusted for comfort during long hours at sea, personal possessions secured against the violent motion of open ocean sailing. Launching the Sea-Serpent. The moment of departure arrives as the sun reaches its full strength above the fjord. Raven's Wing sits ready on her launching cradle, fully loaded and blessed by the gods, waiting only for the combined strength of your warband to carry her down to the water's edge. This moment never fails to stir something deep in the Norse soul. The transition from land-bound farmer to sea-roving warrior, from familiar shores to unknown horizons. Shoulders to the ship, you command, taking your position at the bow where you can direct the launch. Your 30 warriors arrange themselves along both sides of the vessel, hands gripping the specially carved handholds that allow coordinated lifting. The longship weighs several tons when fully loaded, but Norse design distributes this weight efficiently, making the vessel manageable for a determined crew. Lift together. The ship rises from her cradle with surprising ease, 30 men coordinating their strength with the practice of years. The flexible hull actually helps with the launch, bending slightly to distribute stress evenly rather than concentrating force at single points where damage might occur. Your breathing naturally synchronizes with the physical effort, deep inhalations providing oxygen for working muscles. In through your nose as you grip the handholds, out through your mouth as the ship moves toward the water. The familiar burn of coordinated effort feels good after days of planning and preparation. The beach slopes gently toward the water, smooth stones providing solid footing for the launching crew. Your men move in unison, years of experience teaching them to match their steps and share the load equally. No one tries to bear more than his share. Cooperation is essential when handling something as valuable and fragile as a longship. The first touch of water against Raven's Wing's hull creates a subtle change in the ship's behavior. She begins to float, her weight shifting from the men's shoulders to the buoyancy that will carry her across thousands of miles of open ocean. The moment when a ship takes to the water is always slightly magical. The transformation from heavy burden to graceful vessel. Hold steady, you call as the water deepens around the ship's hull. The launch must be controlled carefully to prevent damage to the vessel or injury to the crew. Norse ships are strongly built, but not indestructible, and a damaged hull discovered after departure could turn a profitable raid into a disaster. As Raven's Wing settles fully into the water, her crew scrambles aboard with practiced efficiency. Each man knows his position. Rowers to their benches, sailors to the rigging, warriors to their assigned places for combat. The ordered chaos of embarkation follows patterns learned through successful voyages, everything positioned for maximum effectiveness. The ship comes alive as her crew takes position. Oars slide through the oar holes with satisfying precision, their blades biting into the dark water of the fjord. The steering oar, mounted on the starboard side near the stern, responds immediately to your touch, the ship's bow swinging to point toward the open sea. Your breathing settles into the rhythm that will carry you across the whale road, deep and steady, as you feel the ship begin to move under oar power. 30 men pulling in unison generate surprising speed, the longship's efficient hull designs, translating human effort into swift progress through the water. Across the whale road. The fjord opens before Raven's Wing like a pathway to adventure, its dark waters reflecting the morning sky as your longship glides between the towering cliffs that guard the entrance to the open sea. The familiar landmarks of home slide past. The waterfall where you learned to swim as a child. The rocky promontory where signal fires warn of approaching enemies. The small islands where your ancestors are buried beneath stone mounds. Your warband settles into the rhythm of long-distance rowing, 30 oars moving in perfect unison to drive the ship forward at a steady pace. The rowing isn't the frantic sprint of combat, but the measured stroke that can be maintained for hours, carrying a Norse longship across vast distances when wind fails or proves unfavorable. Hold the stroke steady, you call from your position at the steering oar, watching the coordination that makes efficient sailing possible. Each rower pulls with the strength of his back and shoulders, the oar blade catching water cleanly before sliding forward for the next stroke. Years of practice have taught your men to work together as smoothly as a single organism. Your breathing matches the rowing rhythm. Deep inhalations as the oars catch water. Controlled exhalations as they pull through their stroke. This synchronization helps maintain the pace while ensuring adequate oxygen for sustained effort. The sea air tastes of salt and freedom, carrying hints of the distant shores that wait beyond the horizon. As Raven's Wing clears the fjord mouth and enters the open waters of the North Sea, the character of the voyage changes dramatically. The protected waters give way to long ocean swells that make the ship rise and fall in the ancient rhythm of deep water. Your vessel rides these waves like a living thing, her flexible hull bending with the motion instead of fighting it. The wind holds fair from the east, strong enough to justify raising the sail once you clear the coastal shallows. Ship oars, you command, and 30 long oars slide inboard with practiced precision. The crew moves quickly to raise the mast, the heavy pine pole fitting into its step with a solid thunk that resonates through the ship's hull. The great square sail unfurls like a giant wing, its wool fabric catching the wind with a sound like distant thunder. Immediately, Raven's Wing surges forward under wind power, her speed increasing dramatically as she begins to surf down the faces of the long ocean swells. This is why Norse ships rule the northern seas. The ability to transition seamlessly from oar power to sail power, depending on conditions. Your crew adjusts the sail's angle to catch the maximum wind, the ship responding instantly to each small change. The steering oar in your hands comes alive, requiring constant small corrections to maintain course as wind and waves try to push the ship off her intended heading. This is sailing as the Norse understand it, not fighting the sea but working with it, using natural forces to achieve human purposes. The morning passes in the timeless rhythm of ocean sailing, Waves hiss along the ship's sides as she cuts through the water, while the wind sings through the rigging in notes that vary with her speed and heading. Your warriors settle into the routine of a long voyage, some watching for other ships, others checking equipment, a few trying to catch fish to supplement the voyage's food supply. Your breathing deepens naturally as you settle into the concentration that ocean navigation requires. Every sense must be alert to changes in wind, weather, or sea conditions that could affect the ship's safety. The taste of salt spray, the feel of wind direction on your face, the sound of water against the hull, all provide information essential for successful passage. As the sun climbs toward its zenith, the coast of Norway fades to a thin line behind you, while ahead stretches the seemingly endless expanse of the North Sea. Somewhere beyond that horizon lie the rich monasteries of Northumbria, undefended repositories of silver and gold that will make this voyage profitable if the gods continue to smile on your enterprise. The deep water's hours pass as Raven's Wing drives westward across the North Sea, her bow cutting through waves that grow larger and more regular as the water deepens. The ship rides the swells with the grace of a seabird, rising over each crest before sliding down into the following trough. Your crew has found the easy rhythm of ocean sailing, alert but relaxed, confident in their vessel and their collective skills. The Norwegian coast has long since disappeared behind you, leaving only the circle of horizon that defines a sailor's world. This is the deep water, where navigation depends on the sun's position, the direction of wind and waves, and the subtle signs that experienced seamen learn to read like written text. You maintain course by keeping the wind on your right quarter, trusting in weather patterns that have remained consistent for generations. Your breathing has synchronized with the ship's motion, rising and falling with the swells in a rhythm that connects you intimately to the sea. Each inhalation brings salt air that cleans your lungs, while each exhalation releases the tension of command responsibility. The ocean has its own healing qualities for those who learn to work with rather than against its power. Olaf approaches your position at the steering oar, moving with the unconscious balance of an experienced sailor. "The wind holds steady," he reports, "and I can smell land scent from the west. We should raise the English coast before sunset if conditions continue favorable." You nod, appreciating both the information and the seamanship that allows your lieutenant to detect distant land by scent alone. Norse navigation relies heavily on such subtle indicators: the behavior of seabirds, the color of water, even the way waves reflect off distant shores. These skills, passed down through generations of seafaring people, make possible voyages that would challenge modern navigators. The crew maintains its watchful alertness, scanning the horizon for other ships that might represent either opportunity or threat. The North Sea is well traveled by merchants, fishermen, and other Vikings, making encounters with strangers a constant possibility. Your men check their weapons regularly, ensuring everything remains ready for immediate use if peaceful sailing turns to sudden combat. Midday brings a brief meal of hard cheese and ship's bread, washed down with weak ale that provides both nutrition and safe hydration. Fresh water is too precious to waste on ordinary thirst, saved for genuine need during extended voyages. The food is simple but satisfying, providing energy for the long afternoon of sailing ahead. Your warband settles into the contemplative mood that long sea voyages encourage. Some men work on equipment maintenance, sharpening weapons or adjusting armor for better fit. Others engage in quiet conversation, sharing stories or speculating about the wealth that awaits in English monasteries. A few simply watch the endless panorama of sea and sky, finding peace in the rhythm of waves and wind. The ship continues her steady progress westward, occasionally surfing down particularly large swells at speeds that would challenge any land-based traveler. Raven's Wing was built for this: long ocean passages at sustained speed, carrying warriors and their equipment across vast distances in relative comfort. Her design represents centuries of Norse shipbuilding evolution, each improvement tested by the harsh realities of North Sea sailing. As afternoon advances toward evening, subtle changes in wave patterns and wind direction suggest the approaching English coast. Experienced sailors can detect land hours before it becomes visible, reading the signs that waves and weather patterns create when open ocean meets continental shoreline. Your breathing deepens with anticipation as these signs accumulate. Each inhalation brings air that may have blown across foreign shores, while each exhalation releases some of the voyage's accumulated tension. Soon, navigation will change from the broad patterns of ocean sailing to the precise requirements of coastal approach and landing, sighting the Saxon shore. As the afternoon sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, a sharp-eyed warrior in the bow raises his hand and points ahead. "Land ho!" 2 points off the starboard bow. The cry that every sailor longs to hear echoes across the water, followed by excited murmurs from your crew as they catch their first glimpse of the English coast. Through the late afternoon haze, you can make out the low, dark line that marks the Northumbrian shore. This is Saxon England, the kingdom of Ethelred, where Christianity has taken root among the Germanic tribes that conquered this land 3 centuries ago. Those Christian settlements, particularly the wealthy monasteries, represent the target of this carefully planned expedition. Your breathing naturally quickens with excitement as the destination you've sailed so far to reach finally comes into view. Deep inhalations of salt air mixed with the subtle scents that drift from land. Smoke from cooking fires, the green smell of growing things, the earthy aroma of tilled soil. Each breath brings you closer to the moment when planning becomes action. The coast reveals itself gradually as Raven's Wing approaches under steady wind. Rocky headlands alternate with sandy beaches, while behind the shoreline, green hills roll inland toward the horizon. This is rich country, well-watered and fertile, supporting the prosperous settlements that make raids worthwhile. Your experienced eye evaluates landing sites and escape routes with the automatic assessment of a professional warrior. There, Olaf points toward a small island visible just offshore. That should be Lindisfarne, the monastery the Irish monk told us about last winter. The holy island of Lindisfarne, one of the most sacred sites in northern England, where monks have accumulated treasure for generations while living in peaceful isolation from the warrior culture that dominates most of early medieval Europe. You adjust the steering oar to aim for the sheltered waters between the island and the mainland coast. Norse ships draw little water when lightly loaded, allowing them to navigate shallow channels that would trap deeper drafted vessels. This advantage has made Viking raids possible throughout Europe. The ability to appear suddenly from the sea, strike quickly, and escape before effective resistance can be organized. The wind begins to diminish as you approach the coast, requiring careful sail handling to maintain speed and maneuverability. Your crew responds smoothly to shouted commands, adjusting the great square sail to catch every breath of useful wind while preparing to deploy oars if needed for final approach and landing. The watercolor changes from deep blue to green as the sea shallows, while seabirds become more numerous and varied, sure signs of approaching land. Gulls, terns, and other coastal species wheel around your ship, their cries adding to the excitement of landfall after hours of open ocean sailing. Your breathing settles into the focused rhythm of tactical planning as you study the approaching shoreline. Every detail must be noted and evaluated. The height of the tide, the direction of surf, the presence of other boats or people who might raise an alarm. Successful raids depend on surprise, speed, and the ability to withdraw quickly when objectives are achieved. As afternoon shadows lengthen, Raven's Wing glides through increasingly shallow water toward the beach, below Lindisfarne Monastery. Somewhere above those low cliffs, monks are preparing for evening prayers, unaware that their peaceful world is about to encounter the reality of Viking warfare. The moment you've planned and sailed so far to achieve is finally at hand. The sacred island Lindisfarne appears before you like something from a dream. A small, low island connected to the mainland by a causeway that disappears at high tide, creating the perfect isolation that monks seek for their spiritual pursuits. The monastery buildings cluster on the island's highest point, their stone walls and thatched roofs visible against the evening sky. No armed guards patrol those walls, no lookouts scan the sea for approaching threats. The peace of God, as Christians call it, has made them careless of earthly dangers. Your heart beats faster as you study your target through the clear northern air. This is what you've sailed across the Whale Road to find: a wealthy religious community that has accumulated treasure through generations of pious donations, defended only by prayer and the assumption that their sacred calling provides protection from violence. That assumption is about to be tested by 30 Norse warriors whose gods take a different view of wealth and weakness. The ship glides through water so clear you can see the sandy bottom just feet below Raven's Wing's keel. This shallow approach is perfect for your purposes. Too shallow for larger vessels, but easily navigable by a Norse longship's minimal draft. You can land directly on the beach, disembark quickly, and withdraw just as rapidly when your business is concluded. Your breathing deepens as tactical considerations replace the navigation concerns that occupied the voyage. In through your nose, tasting the salt air mixed with scents from the land, wood smoke, livestock, the green smells of cultivated fields. Out through your mouth, releasing the last tensions of uncertain passage and focusing entirely on the task ahead. "Prepare for landing," you command quietly, your voice carrying clearly in the still air, but not so loudly as to alert anyone ashore. Your warriors respond with practiced efficiency, checking weapons and equipment one final time. Mail shirts are adjusted for comfortable movement, sword belts tightened for secure carry, shields positioned for quick access. These men know their business. The monastery buildings become clearer as you approach, substantial stone structures that speak of considerable wealth and skilled craftsmanship. The church tower rises above the other buildings, its bells silent now in the evening calm. Somewhere within those walls lie the silver chalices, gold ornaments, and precious manuscripts that represent decades of accumulated religious wealth. Brother monks move between the buildings in the distance, small figures in brown robes going about their evening duties. Their movements are unhurried, peaceful, showing no awareness of the armed ship approaching their shore. This isolation has protected them from the wars and raids that afflict less sacred places, but it has also made them vulnerable to enemies who don't share their reverence for holy ground. The water beneath your ship grows shallower still, requiring careful navigation to avoid grounding on hidden rocks or sandbars. Norse ships are built for this kind of approach, but carelessness can still result in damage that could complicate your withdrawal. Every decision now must balance speed with safety, boldness with prudence. Your crew begins the transformation from sailors to warriors as landing approaches. Weapons are unwrapped from protective coverings. Armor is checked for proper fit, and the mental preparation for violence begins. These aren't berserkers who fight in mindless fury, but professional warriors who understand that controlled aggression achieves better results than wild rage. The sun sinks lower toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the water and painting the monastery walls with golden light. Evening is the perfect time for this approach. Late enough that most people are settling in for the night, early enough that full darkness won't complicate navigation and withdrawal. Your timing, like every other aspect of this raid, has been carefully planned. The moment of landing. Raven's wing's keel touches sand with the gentlest scraping sound, barely audible above the lapping of small waves against her hull. After hours of deep water sailing, the solid contact with land feels both satisfying and ominous. The moment when sailing ends and the real purpose of this expedition begins. Your 30 warriors sit motionless at their positions, weapons ready, awaiting your command to transform from seamen into raiders. You step over the side into knee-deep water, feeling the cold shock as North Sea water penetrates your boots. The sandy bottom provides firm footing as you wade ashore, and the beach slopes gently upward toward grass-covered dunes that will provide concealment for your approach to the monastery. Everything appears exactly as described by the Irish monk whose information made this raid possible. Your breathing has found the controlled rhythm of impending combat, each inhalation providing oxygen for muscles that may soon face violent exertion. The evening air carries new scents now that you're ashore, the green smell of grass, the earthier aroma of cultivated soil, and faintly, the wood smoke from monastery fires where monks prepare their simple evening meals. Secure the ship, you command quietly, and half your crew remains with Raven's wing to ensure she's properly beached and ready for quick departure. The others follow you up the beach, moving with the silent efficiency of experienced warriors. Mail shirts make no sound over padded undergarments, weapons are carried to avoid clanking, and footsteps are placed carefully to minimize noise. The monastery lies perhaps half a mile inland, its buildings clearly visible across the flat terrain of the small island. No walls surround the complex. Why would they? These monks have lived for generations in peace, protected by the sanctity of their calling and the isolation of their location. The concept of armed assault on holy ground simply doesn't exist in their worldview. You lead your warband up from the beach, following sheep tracks through the dunes toward the monastery buildings. The grass is short and springy underfoot, cropped by the animals that provide wool and meat for the monastic community. Every detail of the terrain is noted and remembered, information that could prove crucial if a fighting withdrawal becomes necessary. Through the clear evening air, you can hear the sound of bells calling monks to evening prayers. The bronze voices ring across the island with sweet purity, summoning the faithful to worship in their stone church. That same bell tower that calls them to prayer will serve as a landmark for your navigation when darkness makes withdrawal more challenging. Your warriors spread out in a loose line as you approach the monastery, each man responsible for watching a specific sector while maintaining visual contact with his neighbors. This formation allows for coordinated assault while preventing any monk from escaping to raise alarm in the surrounding countryside. Professional soldiers understand that controlling information is as important as controlling terrain. The first monastery building comes into view as you crest a low rise, a substantial stone storehouse with thick walls and heavy wooden doors. Such buildings typically contain the monastery's accumulated wealth, stored against times of need or for use in charitable works. Tonight, that stored wealth will serve a different purpose entirely. Your breathing settles into the steady rhythm of approaching action as you study the monastery layout. Each building must be identified and assigned to specific warriors. Escape routes planned and memorized, the timing of the assault coordinated to achieve maximum surprise. Success in raids like this depends on thorough planning executed with swift precision. The evening light continues to fade as you position your men for the assault on Lindisfarne Monastery. Soon, the peace of this holy island will be shattered by the war cries of Norse warriors, and the age of Viking raids will begin in earnest. But for now, there's only the quiet tension of warriors preparing for violence, breathing deeply in the gathering darkness. The ravens descent. The monastery bells fall silent as the monks complete their evening prayers. leaving only the sound of wind through grass and the distant murmur of waves against the shore. This moment of peaceful quiet will be the last that Lindisfarne knows for many hours, as 30 Norse warriors prepare to introduce these holy men to a very different reality than their prayers and psalms. You raise your hand in the signal your warband has awaited, then point toward the monastery buildings. Without a word, your warriors rise from their concealment and begin moving forward in the loose formation that will allow them to surround the entire complex before any alarm can be raised. Years of raiding experience have taught the value of coordinated assault over individual heroics. Your breathing quickens slightly with the excitement of action finally beginning, but remains controlled and steady. Deep inhalations provide oxygen for what's coming, while measured exhalations maintain the calm focus that separates professional warriors from mere brawlers. This is what you've sailed across the Whale Road to accomplish. The first building reached is indeed a storehouse, its thick stone walls testament to the wealth stored within. While several of your men secure the building's exits, you approach the heavy wooden door with Olaf and 2 others. The iron lock yields quickly to a pry bar, and the door swings open to reveal the treasures that justify this entire expedition. Inside, wooden chests line the walls, while silver vessels gleam on stone shelves in the dim light filtering through small windows. Chalices, crosses, decorative plates, and ornamental books with jeweled covers, the accumulated donations of generations of faithful Christians who believed their gifts would serve God in perpetuity. Tonight, they'll serve Odin and Thor instead. Quickly but quietly, you whisper to the men, beginning to load portable treasures into leather sacks. Every piece of silver represents wealth that can buy land, livestock, or equipment back in Norway. But speed is essential. The longer this takes, the greater the chance that someone will escape to alert the mainland authorities. Across the monastery grounds, your other warriors are systematically working through the remaining buildings. The monks' quarters yield additional treasures, personal items of value, coins saved for charitable works, and the occasional weapon left by a visitor or former warrior who took religious vows. Everything of value goes into the rapidly filling sacks. Your breathing maintains its steady rhythm as you coordinate the raid's progress, ensuring that every building is searched while guards watch for any sign of organized resistance. So far, the operation proceeds with the smooth efficiency that marks experienced raiders. Quick, thorough, and surprisingly quiet, given the amount of material being moved. The monastery's church presents the greatest prize and the greatest risk. Its stone walls are thicker, its doors heavier, and within its sanctuary lie the most precious treasures, the gold altar vessels and jeweled religious artifacts that represent the community's greatest wealth. But churches also attract the most desperate resistance from those who value spiritual treasures above earthly life. As you approach the church entrance, a young monk appears from the shadows, his face showing more confusion than fear. He speaks in the Northumbrian dialect, words you don't understand but can interpret from his gestures and expression. He's asking questions, seeking to understand what's happening to his peaceful world. Olaf steps forward and strikes the monk down with the flat of his axe, unconscious but not killed, following the practical wisdom that dead monks tell no tales, but also create unnecessary complications with Christian authorities. Your warband understands the difference between necessary violence and wasteful brutality, applying force efficiently rather than indiscriminately. The church doors open to reveal the target you've traveled so far to reach, the altar gleaming with gold and silver vessels, crosses studded with precious stones, and the ornate containers that hold the relics these Christians venerate above all earthly treasures. This single building contains wealth that could support your entire household for years. Your breathing deepens with satisfaction as your men work swiftly to strip the altar of its treasures. Each piece goes into specially prepared containers that will protect valuable items during the sea voyage home. This is the moment that justifies all the planning, all the risks, all the effort of crossing the Whale Road to strike at the heart of Saxon England. The warrior's harvest. The monastery church yields treasures beyond even your optimistic expectations. Gold chalices crafted by master smiths, silver plates decorated with intricate Christian symbols, jeweled crosses that catch and reflect the torchlight your men have lit to aid their work. Each piece represents not just material wealth, but the concentrated faith of generations of believers who donated their finest possessions to honor their God. Your warband works with practiced efficiency, wrapping precious items in cloth before placing them in leather sacks designed for sea transport. Nothing is taken carelessly. Damaged goods lose value, and maintaining the integrity of high-quality craftsmanship ensures maximum profit when these treasures reach Norwegian markets or are traded for land and livestock. The sound of footsteps on stone alerts you to approaching monks, drawn by the torchlight and unusual activity in their sacred spaces. 3 older men appear in the church doorway, their faces showing the progression from confusion to understanding to horror as they realize what's happening to their life's work and spiritual home. One monk, elderly and clearly senior in the community's hierarchy, steps forward with surprising courage. His Latin words carry tone and meaning even if you can't understand the specific language. He's demanding that you cease this sacrilege, appealing to divine authority that he assumes must command respect even from armed pagans. Your response is pragmatic rather than cruel. These monks have information about other treasures, hidden caches, and the locations of additional wealth throughout the island. Living captives can provide such intelligence, while dead ones tell no tales. Secure them, you command, and your warriors efficiently bind the monks with rope carried for exactly this purpose. Your breathing remains controlled as you oversee both the treasure collection and the management of captives. Each task requires attention and precision. Rushing either could result in missed wealth or escaped witnesses who might complicate your withdrawal. Professional raiders understand that thoroughness now prevents problems later. Additional monks appear sporadically as word spreads through the community, but your warriors have positioned themselves to control all approaches to the central buildings. Some religious men attempt to flee toward the mainland, but your sentries intercept them efficiently. A few try to hide valuable items, but experienced raiders know all the traditional hiding places that desperate people use. The treasure accumulation exceeds your carrying capacity, forcing difficult decisions about what to take and what to leave behind. Gold obviously takes priority over silver, gems over base metals, small valuable items over bulky pieces of lesser worth. These calculations must be made quickly but accurately. Mistakes here reduce the expedition's profitability. As the last accessible treasures are secured, you order your men to gather information from the captured monks about additional wealth hidden elsewhere on the island. The questioning is firm, but not unnecessarily harsh. Frightened people provide unreliable information, while those treated with basic dignity often cooperate to minimize further disruption. The monks reveal the locations of several additional caches: burial sites where particularly valuable relics are hidden, caves where emergency supplies are stored, and the personal quarters of visiting dignitaries who sometimes leave valuable items behind. Each location must be quickly investigated while maintaining security around the primary buildings. Your warriors report finding additional treasures in several locations, though nothing approaching the church's concentrated wealth. Personal items from individual monks, silver coins saved for purchasing supplies, and valuable manuscripts that might find markets among scholars or nobles who collect such things. Every item adds to the expedition's total value. As the treasure collection nears completion, your attention turns to the withdrawal phase of the operation. The longer you remain on the island, the greater the chance that escaped monks have reached the mainland and alerted Saxon authorities. Speed now becomes as important as thoroughness has been throughout the raid. Your breathing deepens with anticipation as you prepare to give the withdrawal order. Each successful raid ends with this moment. The transition from offense to defense, from concentrated action to careful retreat. The treasures are secured, the objectives achieved, and now the challenge becomes carrying this wealth safely back across the Whale Road to Norway, the Raven's Flight. The time has come to transform from raiders back into sailors, carrying your hard-won treasures safely across the north. See before Saxon response can organize against you. To the ship, you command. And your warband begins the disciplined withdrawal that separates successful Vikings from dead ones. Every man knows his role, every movement has been planned, and the execution must be flawless to avoid losing the night's gains. Your warriors move in coordinated groups, some carrying the treasure-laden sacks, while others maintain defensive positions against potential pursuit. The bound monks remain under guard, not from cruelty, but because witnesses who can provide detailed descriptions of your ship and crew could enable future identification and retaliation. The walk back to the beach feels different from your approach hours earlier. Then, you moved with the focused tension of warriors approaching combat. Now, laden with wealth and responsible for captives, your pace is more measured, your alertness directed toward different threats. Success brings its own vulnerabilities. Your breathing adjusts to the rhythm of tactical withdrawal, each inhalation providing oxygen for sustained movement, while each exhalation maintains the calm focus that prevents haste from becoming carelessness. The treasure sacks are heavy, but your men are strong, and the distance to the ship is manageable for warriors in good condition. The monastery burns behind you now, flames rising from the wooden portions of buildings, while the stone structures stand like dark monuments to the night's work. The fires aren't revenge or meaningless destruction, but practical measures to prevent immediate pursuit and to signal your departure to any Saxon forces that might be gathering. Raven's Wing waits exactly where you left her, your ship guard having maintained careful watch throughout the raid. The longship sits peacefully in the shallow water, her dragon head pointing seaward as if eager to begin the return voyage. Seeing your vessel ready for departure provides the satisfaction that comes from plans executed according to design. Loading the treasure aboard requires the same care used during the initial landing, but now speed is equally important. Each sack must be properly stowed to maintain the ship's balance while ensuring valuable items remain secure during what may be a rough passage. Your crew works with practiced efficiency, decades of raiding experience evident in every movement. The captive monks are brought aboard and secured in the ship's center, where they can be watched easily while remaining out of the way during sailing operations. These men represent additional value, ransom possibilities, sources of information about other targets, or slaves for Norwegian households that need educated workers. As the last warrior climbs aboard and the treasure loading concludes, you feel the satisfaction of a successful operation completed according to plan. The risk has been managed, the objectives achieved, and the withdrawal executed without casualties or significant complications. This is how Viking raids should proceed when properly planned and professionally executed. Your breathing deepens with anticipation as you prepare to give the departure order. The tide is beginning to turn in your favor, the wind remains steady from the east, and the night is clear enough for navigation by starlight. All conditions favor a swift departure from Saxon waters before organized pursuit can develop. Push off, you command, and willing hands thrust Raven's Wing away from the beach into deeper water. The ship responds immediately, her flexible hull lifting with the waves as she returns to her natural element. Within moments, 30 oars bite into the dark water, driving your treasure-laden vessel toward the open sea in safety. The monastery flames fade behind you as Raven's Wing gains speed under her crew's powerful strokes. Lindisfarne returns to darkness except for those fires, while ahead lies the Whale Road and the long passage back to Norwegian waters. The raid that will mark the beginning of the Viking Age has been completed successfully. The long road home hours pass as Raven's Wing drives eastward through the North Sea darkness, her crew maintaining the steady rowing pace that will carry them safely away from Saxon waters before dawn reveals their position to potential pursuers. The treasure is safely stowed, the captives secured, and the ship performing perfectly despite her heavy load. Everything proceeds according to the careful plans that made this raid possible. Your breathing has settled into the deep rhythm of night sailing, each inhalation bringing salt air tinged with the satisfaction of success, each exhalation releasing the tension that accompanied the dangerous approach and raid. The familiar weight of command feels lighter now that the most critical decisions have been made and executed successfully. The captured monks huddle together in the ship's center, their Latin prayers mixing with the sound of oars and waves to create an odd counterpoint to the night's journey. These men are learning that the world extends far beyond their peaceful island, that other peoples have different values and gods, that Christian sanctity provides no protection against pagan steel. Your warriors maintain their alertness despite the successful completion of their primary objective. Night sailing requires constant vigilance, and the possibility of Saxon pursuit ships means that relaxation must wait until you reach Norwegian waters. Professional raiders understand that the mission isn't complete until everyone returns home safely with their shares of the treasure. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient patterns, providing navigation references for the homeward voyage. Your course lies northeast toward the Norwegian coast, following star positions and wind directions that have guided Norse sailors for generations. No charts exist for this navigation. The knowledge lives in the minds of experienced seamen. As the hours pass and distance increases from the English coast, the immediate danger of pursuit diminishes. Saxon ships are less well designed for night sailing than Norse vessels, and organizing an effective response takes time that works in your favor. By dawn, you should be far enough from land that interception becomes increasingly unlikely. The treasure sacks rest securely in the ship's belly, their weight serving as ballast that actually improves Raven's Wing stability in the moderate seas. Each sack represents months of comfortable living for your warriors' families, land purchases that will establish new farms, and the weapons and equipment needed for future expeditions. This single night's work will provide prosperity for years. Your breathing deepens naturally as you contemplate the successful completion of what will be remembered as one of history's most significant raids. The attack on Lindisfarne marks the beginning of the Viking Age, though you have no way of knowing that this night's work will inspire hundreds of similar expeditions throughout the next 3 centuries. The wind holds steady from the west, allowing periodic rest for your rowers as the ship makes good progress under sail alone. These respites let your crew recover from the night's exertions while maintaining speed toward home waters. The balance between human effort and natural forces exemplifies the Norse approach to seamanship. Dawn approaches gradually, first lightening the eastern sky before spreading westward across the North Sea. With daylight comes increased visibility that aids navigation, but also makes your ship detectable by potential enemies. The calculation now becomes whether to maintain course for maximum speed or seek concealment among the scattered islands that dot these waters. Your decision favors speed over stealth. Raven's Wing can outrun most potential pursuers, and reaching Norwegian waters quickly reduces the time you remain vulnerable to retaliation. The treasure is too valuable to risk in extended hiding, and your crew is skilled enough to handle whatever challenges the final leg of the voyage might present. As full daylight reveals the empty horizons around your speeding longship, you allow yourself the satisfaction of a perfectly executed raid. The planning worked, the intelligence proved accurate, the execution proceeded without serious complications, and the withdrawal achieved its objectives. This is how Viking expeditions should function when led by experienced warriors and crewed by skilled seafarers. Your breathing settles into the contented rhythm of successful completion as Norway's coast appears ahead. Home waters, friendly shores, and the end of a voyage that will be remembered in saga and song for generations to come. The Viking Age has begun with this night's work, though that knowledge belongs to future historians rather than present participants. The treasure of Lindisfarne rides safely in Ravenswing's belly, while ahead lie the fjords of home and the rewards that successful raiders earn through courage, skill, and careful planning. Your breathing deepens with anticipation as the most famous raid in Viking history nears its successful conclusion. Sleep comes naturally now to those not on watch, warriors and sailors alike settling into the peaceful exhaustion that follows dangerous work successfully completed. The gentle motion of the ship, the steady sound of waves against her hull, and the satisfaction of wealth fairly won combine to create the perfect conditions for rest. Let your own breathing match this peaceful rhythm as consciousness drifts toward the restoration that successful voyagers have earned throughout history. In and out, slow and steady, carrying you toward the same deep sleep that has refreshed Viking raiders returning from distant shores with treasure and tales of adventure. Rest now in the knowledge that courage and skill can triumph over distance and danger, that careful planning enables remarkable achievements, and that the human spirit of exploration and adventure continues across all the centuries that separate us from these ancient seafarers. Breathe deeply, relax completely, and let yourself drift into the healing sleep of warriors who have faced the unknown and returned home victorious, their ship heavy with treasure, and their hearts light with the satisfaction of deeds that will be remembered